Okay, people, here we are. Block Party's out after Backers' big win, 34-13 over the Arizona Cardinals. I'm your host, Mike Wahle. Thanks for watching. If you're employed, enjoying, please subscribe, rate, review on our Process to Perform channel on YouTube. Check us out on Believe Network, anywhere you get your podcasts. If you want to listen to the audio version, although we do a ton of film breakdown here, I don't know why you would do that, but I'm happy that you are. Find me at MikeWall68 on Twitter, Process to Perform on Instagram. Our show is always sponsored by Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup, breakdown, even live odds and spreads are to bet on during games with the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, Major League Baseball playoffs, NHL, NBA, to political props. What have I missed? When the game's over, head on over to the online casino and get into the game of blackjack or poker. Unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet online. The game starts here. I had no idea I could political prop bet. And let me just start by saying this. I'm not really a political person unless it's election season. So I know there's a lot of, shame on you things there. But holy hell, if I can political prop bet, like what color tie they're wearing, how many times they do this, or say some things like, I think of the thing on Kamala Harris is like, I grew up in a middle class family. She starts with that every answer. I mean, who knows what the prop bets on Trump would be? That's phenomenal. That's worth it, guys. Go to the website, check it out. That's amazing. So let's talk about this game, which was actually amazing as well. The Packers thumped the Cardinals. I put down Packers thump confusing Cardinals. They're a confusing team. Beat them 34-13. We moved to 4-2. And this was the game that I think that we thought as fans, certainly I'm sure they thought in the locker room, this is going to be that get-right game that you were supposed to have against the Rams. That game is a little bit more dangerous, and maybe there's some holes that we saw in the offense, at least, that you wanted to fill. I was more concerned about Kyler Murray and their offensive system maybe than I should have been. Certainly more than I should have been. The Packers absolutely shut down Murray. Marvin Harrison Jr. got hurt early, killed my fantasy game, by the way. And the Cardinals just really never got going. First off, let's say this. Jeff Hadley, everything so far points to, why didn't we hire you 3 years ago? Because they play harder. And the number one thing they do, the two things that are most important in our defense: they tackle better and they swarm to the football, and they do that better than they have in the last 3 years. And when you went into this game and you look at, okay, the Cardinals are going to run a lot of 13 personnel, they're going to run a lot of 12. They want to run a lot of under center stuff out of play action. They want to condense the field, much like, quite frankly, much like the Packers, the Lions, the Rams, all these teams like to do. We did such a good job with the defensive adjustment. It looked like, for the adjustment for their packages, it looked like we were rotating different combinations of players based on personnel groups. So Eric Wilson starts the game. Cooper gets a lot of snaps. Williams starts in the back. Buller's playing at the nickel. You start seeing kind of some tendencies. Keyshawn Nixon starts the game with Jair Alexander at the other corner because they start in 13 personnel. And you've got better tacklers on the field now. So I just love the way that they're thinking about that. Like, I know you have your starting 11, but then you're putting in the guys for, like, what is specific to that team, which, quite frankly, we could say, oh, yeah, that seems obvious, but it's not like everybody does that. The Packers were able to take away the Cards' biggest threat early. Obviously, the game gets out of hand, and we start getting a couple more yards here and there. Here's the thing I really liked. Okay, so Kyler Murray is the number one threat, obviously, through the air at being the quarterback, but really when he breaks pocket contain, that's when he's trouble, especially when he gets going downhill. I thought there was a great rush plan, and I really thought that the angles of pursuit by the defensive line, keeping him from going towards the line of scrimmage, making him go away or towards the sideline. I thought that was one of the keys to the game. We talked about it before on our Thursday preview. He finishes with 214 yards and a touchdown. I mean, not great. The good stats, not great stats. 14 yards on 7 carries rushing. That's the stat of the week. Okay. And it goes back to what we talked about before. A great game plan, yes. But really, when you talk about how well they tackle comparatively to some, there's a couple of tackles that stand out because Isaiah McDuffie missed 2 tackles in this game that he usually doesn't miss. But these guys tackle better than they have in the past, and the pursuit of the ball is incredible. And then we'll talk about the Evan Williams, the peanut punch. I know we can say that. It is absolutely a different ball game when you get all of that going. Great game from some of the young guys. I think Cooper and Williams in particular, Bullard, fair enough. Guys are just if this is the top defensive class in Goody's tenure in 5 years from now, as you look back, wouldn't be surprising. If we can get the first rounder to figure out where they're going to play him, but it could be the best draft class that they've had in 10 years. These guys are unbelievable from the level that they're playing at and the level they compete at and the confidence that they play with at this age. The speed to the ball that Cooper has compared to, even to Quay, just see ball, hit ball is a completely different level. Williams is just power. I mean, Williams walks in, he just looks like trouble. Like he just looks like a cartoon character, just ready, rocked up, ready to go, locked in. When he's locked in, you can just these guys bring a different attitude to the field. I think particularly Bolden Evans or Evan Williams. What I like most about this defensive effort in this game is they just kept squeezing the cards. You just feel the air getting sucked out of them. There's no sacks, but Murray's constantly off his spot, having to back up, throw. There's a play in the game early that'll show that you just kind of know the game's over. And then starting with Carl Brooks again with a hustle play where he gets the strip sack or I don't know if they credit it with him, but he gets the fumble recovery on the screen. The Cards do what the Cards do. The Packers just let them. 3 turnovers to end the game. I mean, with the last one being just a laugher. And just an incredible defensive effort. Let me see what they had as far as total yards. Of course, I don't look at everything because I'm a fool. I don't even know where to look at that. Let's just say they did well. Let's just say they did well and call it a day, and then we'll watch tape. It's more fun that way. Let's watch tape. All right, here we are. So great adjustment. Talked about it before. We got single safety high. They've got 13 personnel in. Okay, and they're just running a simple, really like a kick play, and they're going to try to exploit this player backside, talking about on the left, because usually that corner stays 5 yards off and doesn't try to make the tackle at the line of scrimmage. But that's not who Keyshawn Nixon is. Now, Keyshawn Nixon's had some issues with tackling, fair enough. But when you put him in this situation, do you want to be aggressive to the ball at the line of scrimmage against 13 personnel so they absolutely cannot try to break you for those easy 5-yard gains on this kick play? Then, hey, man, this is what he was designed to do. Like, this is right up his alley. Great way to start the football game. Usually when you run that play, you're thinking it's a free 5-yard gain because you're thinking that corner's not going to step up and you're going to run through that tackle and you're going to get at least 5 falling forward, if not more. So we get in here, double A gap pressures. And I think this is the first third down. And I'm just telling you, they're playing sticks, but you run this third down stuff, and now you got both of these guys can rush the passer. Cooper we know Quay can rush. Cooper puts a move on a running back later on in the game that leaves he's punching air. And so now with Wilson, with McDuffie, you start moving these guys in, and you're just forcing the quick throw. I wanted to emphasize that we're collapsing the pocket. We're going straight in. We're not trying to go over the top. We do always fall into that trap a little bit, but just generally speaking, this was, I think, a really good job of containing and having a pass rush plan. We go motion across to really just a 2-by-2 look with 2 tight ends. You see Kenny Clark getting in the backfield. Those plays don't stand out on the stat sheet, but that really disrupts this play. Doesn't show in the stats, but we're still talking about, trying to be a penetrating player. Does a great job of beating the down block. And again, just makes it difficult for that running back to get momentum downhill. I think it's fair to say he's ready to start. I mean, based on this last game and really he's the way his kind of his ascendancy in game-to-game improvement, he's the real deal. he can play. We knew he could play when watching him in college. Just his speed of play is maybe at the next level of the other guys. Sure, there's some physical things that he needs to adapt for, but you got to take some good with the bad. I remember very specifically when I was in Carolina and we had Dan Morgan, and Dan was so good, but Dan had a couple things, and they brought in John Beeson. John Beeson was a rookie out of Miami, as was Dan. Dan was I think the Buckets Award winner there, and I think Beeson might have been as well. And Beeson, was he was okay in training camp, but then when the season started, it was like it took like one or two games, and we're like, oh, like he is going to be a star, and he knew it, and he wasn't afraid to say it, and he made sure that we all knew it. And this kid reminds me of that. I don't know what his demeanor is like, but the way he plays, the ferocity, just the intensity towards the ball, like he's special. Now, having said that, these plays don't happen without these other two guys. Okay, we split the double team by Carl Brooks, and then Edenbari just stands up the tight end in the hole. Okay, it doesn't work if that guard can get up to the second level. Carl Brooks makes this play. Edenbari makes the cutback, and so Cooper gets the tackle for loss of the tackle line of scrimmage, and he does a great job. But let's not minimize or let's not overlook the dirty work that neither of those guys will get in the stat sheet, but they make that play. Fantastic job. So they show one, bring the other. And this is when you knew, and this is early, game over, man. So he feels a little bit pressured, gets heated up by Quay. Great. Okay, this is what I was talking about. Carl Brooks is not chasing him. He's running to the line of scrimmage. Okay. And then Rashawn Gary is chasing him. So two things are happening. They're going to let him roll out and try to make a throw. They just don't want him going downhill. So great job by Carl Brooks of just being smart. Like, I can't outrun you, but I can get to this spot. And then two, Gary almost kills him right here. And the game's over. Like, to put it in perspective, this isn't high school. You just ran to the right sideline and tried to throw the ball to the far left hash. It's game over. You're not winning this game now. And I think I say rattled here. So Evan Williams is just outside the box on the line of scrimmage. This is a run option that they have no business sticking with. You've got to get out of this play if you're Kyler Murray. So I think early on they're just rattled. This makes this makes no sense. It's 2-on-2. You're never making this. I don't know if he thinks he beat the rookie, but boy, he sure couldn't. That was easy as it gets. Sometimes you get in these quarterbacks' heads. I'm not going to say that I know for a fact that was the case, but I can promise you there's a lot of guys getting out of that play. Great job by the Packers. Now, this is a double damn moment for me because there's a handful of plays, and I'm as big a fan of these two guys as anybody. But one, we've been talking about penetrating with Kenny and kind of figuring out, is it good or bad, and when is it good or bad? You get reached here by a guy who's is an inferior player to you. Okay, so first of all, you get reached. Now, I know you get back in the backfield, but you get reached, and that's a problem because you're trying to penetrate. You don't try to press you press the wrong shoulder. He should be pressing the offense's right shoulder upfield so he can open him up, not the other way around. And then McDuffie does a good job here of getting to the spot and just feel like you got to make that tackle. So they motion off. This is going to be they do this twice in a row. So they motion off and they run the same route combination 2 plays in a row. So you got the double seams, you got the wheel on the outside of the bottom, and you just got the fade on the outside of the top. And they're just trying to pick a safety. And whatever linebacker doesn't carry, we're going to go to that direction. Okay, so it's a single high beater as long as from time begin. So now they go from trips over. It's empty now, so they've added a player. You can't see him at the bottom of the screen. They've added a player, but they're running the same concept. They've just added the 5th receiver that's just going to run back into the middle to occupy the linebacker. But really, we're just trying to, a lot of people are looking at Jair like, what am I supposed to do? but they're running the wheel route. And so we got to get that linebacker to carry right here. Or if they're not playing man, if they're playing zone, McDuffie's got to get back and give some options here. But this is a real problem. You see the safeties over to the far hash, even though we've got the 3 side over here, the heavy side. And so really an easy throw and catch. You see the player at the bottom of the screen. Like there's no way Jared Alexander can be right here. So good play design. What? Oh, here we go. What was that? Goodness me. Eric Wilson in the game here. 13 personnel. This is one of their answers at the start. We go over. This is just great football here. So penetration now. Back to Kenny. Really disrupting the line of scrimmage. And again, not something he gets shows up in the stat sheet. And then Quay, watch Quay here. Punch, being the aggressor towards the line of scrimmage. Hey, this is unprovoked now. Okay? Punch, separate off that center, come in and make the play. Now, great job by Rashawn Gary on the outside as well of holding up this tight end. Okay? Fantastic job. But love that you see Quay Blaine downhill, getting his hands on that center before the center can turn his shoulders and get into him, right? And then having a tackle at the line of scrimmage. Great job by Kenny. Fantastic, man. Now, the interior of this offensive line is good. They do a nice job, right? But individual effort sometimes, and we saw it a number of times from KC, 97 is going to supersede that. And when you have doubles and you attack a single man, like our guys did, Carl Brooks did on that play before, it really screws up the timing on the second level. This is a bad sign. When your defensive tackle right before the snap is in a 2-eye, and he's looking back. I don't know if he's looking at Quay or he's looking over at the other D tackle and going like, where am I supposed to be going right now? What's the call? And then he tries to loop outside here and doesn't make it. Like that's no bueno. So Quay's not wrong here. We need Carl. I think Carl Brooks is supposed to get over to the outside of the beat gap. And he's trying to, Quay's just trying to free his guy up. But because he gets hooked and then pressed, there's a huge lane here. It's probably the run of the day for these guys. Great effort by Keyshawn trying to get him out of bounds there. Understanding play action. Now this is the one. Great job accelerating by Cooper. This is the one play where they got over the top. Though you look at the running room here for Kyler Murray. This is one of the few times I thought, he should have just took off. Luckily he didn't. Cooper makes a great play. There's an open field tackle that I don't know everybody in the league can make. And again, this is where it just goes downhill for the Cardinals. Effort by 94. Closing the door on this. Strip sack, fumble recovery, 1. And then I think we got Evan Williams here on the second one. I spoke too soon. So they run a TE. First of all, look at the get off at Kenny compared to everybody else. That's one thing we don't talk about. I've said it a little bit when we talk about why some of the other guys are having a hard time with the pass rush. But look at the get off. Look how far Kenny's another yard ahead of everyone else, right? Same snap count, same everything, just doing a better job of timing it. So that's maybe something we need to address some of the other guys. But we run the TE here. Gary's, finally, right? He's going to get his sack, and then, that's just tough. And there's just, I don't know if there's anyone in the league that's catching this guy. I still haven't seen the guy get a clean hit. Fantastic job by Evan Williams here. So back-to-back big games. Jared comes in low, doesn't really try to tackle, but now you just see him like load up that fist, punch right through the ball, turnover number 2, and then this is it. Like chaos reigns, man. The game's over. It's 34-13. They're going in. They have a chance to not even make the game close, but not make it a laugher. Maybe get up to 20, 21 points. And Murray's trying to tell the running back what the hell the play is. Oh, yeah, I got it. Oh, no. I'm going to hike the ball. And then what are we doing? This is the NFL, boys. That's tough. Great game by the defense, man. Really, it was just so much fun to watch. You love what a difference a year makes. What a difference a coach makes. And you just, you hate to dump on somebody, but well, just celebrate what's going on right now. It's not going to be perfect, and they're gonna have their, and they're playing young guys, and there's all of that that kind of plays into it. But man, the effort and the focus and the aggressiveness, and I don't know how much of that is the coordinator or the coaching staff, and I honestly I don't know how much of that is these young players. These young players are making a huge difference in this game. You think about your secondary from the last 3 years at the other safety position, at the corner, and now you figured out, okay, we can play all three. We can play we can play X, we can play Evan Williams, and we can play Bullard at the same time, and that erases so many problems. And now we put Keyshawn Nixon maybe in a position where he can be more aggressive to the ball. He can do the things that he wants. I mean, it really opens the door, I think, to a lot of sustained good play because those guys are all under contract for a number of years now. Awesome. Let's talk about offense. So Jordan Love, first, what you would call, welcome to 2024 big game. Inspired play, finished with 258, had 4 touchdowns, had the one pick that was a slip, not his fault. Made the right reads over the course of the day. Made the throws that he's expected to throw. Made some of the throws that are, you go there. There's one. I think there's one window throw on a third or fourth down to Watson across the middle. I don't know if I put it in here, but just great window throw. But throwing to open guys, stepping into just looked good. Obviously, everyone's going to talk about what a great throw to Dobbs in the touchdown. That's trusting your guy. Not a great throw, not in anything. That's Dobbs making a play, the other guy not being able to find the ball. But you can't score if you don't put if you don't put your chips in play, you can't win. So you love that part of it, right? It doesn't have to be a perfect ball in that situation because it's a 1v1 and you're trusting your guy. Here's the thing that I had never seen before, I don't think. 10 players caught a pass and 7 players ran the football. 10 players on the team caught a pass and 7 ran the football. I mean, talking about spreading the ball around, whether that's the floor, obviously with most of that, and then Jordan Love finding the right reads, the evolution of football continues in Green Bay. I honestly can't think of a time I ever heard numbers like that. That doesn't make any sense. The head coach is running circles around some of these teams with different kind of the way that he creates different opportunities to get the ball in space with different players. And having said that, one thing needs to be addressed with the Cardinals. What the hell were they doing rushing 4 people? I mean, they don't have a single pass rusher on their football team anyways. But you watch Jordan Love. So I think there's 32 passing plays. Well, that he didn't run the football. So that's 33. 28 of those plays, he's playing 7-on-7. 28 of the plays, he's playing 7-on-7. There's nobody touching him. I mean, the pockets are 4-yard radius. It's absurd. And the Green Bay did a great job. Hey, clap your hands. But except for Deron Jones, who put up a fight for their whole team, and they're not bringing extra men. It was just insane to watch. Even as a fan of the Packers, you go, good God, man! You don't want to put your guys in that situation. Here's what, again, you have to just tip your hat to the offensive staff. You get 179 yards in the running game, and not at all what you call dominant performance by traditional standards. Jacobs, again, only 62 yards and 18 carries. That's less than, what is that? Less than 4 yards a carry? 3 yards a carry? What's that? 1854. So yeah, just over 3 yards a carry. 3.3. 6 other players account for over 100 yards. So 6 other players touch the ball to get over 100 yards on the ground. Creativity is king in Green Bay right now. And the Cards, unfortunately for them, were forced for most of the game. They really just played vanilla. You watch how they're lining up from the sideline copy, and it's like you're just playing chess out there. And I mean, guys are standing in spaces, right? It's like watching Pep Guardiola's Man City team. Because Jaden Reed's lining up in the backfield a couple times a game, and you're trying to figure out where the hell, what does that do to our matchup? Fun football to watch. You'd love to see some more dominant performances up front as a former offensive lineman. But I say that and then I go, you ran for 180 yards. So what are you asking for? Let's watch some tape. All right, here we go. Nope, just kidding. I'm back. So we got a pistol, downhill. First one, look at the whole. First off, so you get your man Jane Reed. So they got a man outside the box, not in this particular count, okay? Because they motioned him in. You've got Kraft hipped off, and he's going to do a good job of singling up here, being able to stick on their outside back or defensive end. Now, Zach Tom gets his left hand extended. He crosses over, but between him and Morgan, they get their two guys with a clear lane. And look at everybody else has their guy so much that they're pointed the other direction. You can't get better than this for running lane. The next person to make a play is the safety, right? Just a fantastic job. And what a runner this guy is after contact, man. Unbelievable. Now, this is why I talk about manufacturing run game. So you pull the guard, you look like you're going to follow with the tight end or the fullback, and you end up handing this ball off, not to Jacobs, but to Bo Melton on the end around for, what is that, 25 yards? That's 25 yards that goes on the back, one carry for 25 yards on a damn reverse from Bo Melton that goes on the back of your rushing stats. And you look like a genius all of a sudden, and because they are. It's fantastic. Look at this play here. Again, in the whirl by the fullback, Myers gets one. You got backside Zach Tom getting one. Fantastic. Love it. Way to ID coverage. So they go why I say that, they go in motion with the running back. Come on, Mike. They put the running back in motion across the ball. That IDs the coverage for them. They know it's in zone. Why does that matter? Because they're going bunch side. So you had four receivers on one side. You got the one-on-one up top. You know it's zone coverage on the left. Well, that means they're going to have to pass off the crosser. Okay? Happens to be Chris Barnes, happens to be a former Packer. While we love the guy, we know he can't run Jaden Reed. So they run the whirl route. They run the tight end on the corner, but they know they've got a matchup here where a linebacker's got to try to cover your kind of shiftiest guy on a shallow cross. Impossible. Good first touchdown. We go under center, play action pass. Look at the time, guys. This is absurd. I mean, the Cardinals, the Cardinals DBs, they deserve better. So this guy sticks with the receiver for 25 yards, right? Runs all the way across the field. You can't hold him forever. Do a job coming back up down the line, down the stem, by the way, on that play. With so much time to throw. And listen, it is hard to pass block. And I'm saying great job by the Packers. But when you're going under center play action pass, you got guys chipping out and there's only 4 rushing. If you're the Cardinals, it's aside from Buddha, who do you have in your secondary or linebacker crew that you think is so good that they're gonna give a 7-second drop and be able to cover because you're not getting home with 4? Crazy. All right, we got 2 in the backfield. Again, setting the table. Fantastic job. So they do the quick motion again, and it just gives them enough of kind of eye candy to understand how they're going to play over there. That means they have to rotate back on that safety. They have to rotate back to the other side. He knows that. They bring the back all the way over to run the screen. You don't see that too often. Well, I guess you see it all the time. But when you come out of the 2 backfield, you motion the guy over, you put him on the go, and then you bring the guy all the way over across the center to run the screen. While I suppose that's not the rarest thing you've ever seen, it is a wrinkle that you're not used to seeing, especially if you're a defensive player here. Great play calling, man. I mean, Jenkins gets a little bit. So the one thing Jenkins did here, I'd have to say, is he made this dude pretty angry after this. This guy ended up having a pretty decent game, but takes his helmet off And I started thinking, you watch this. I know people have said this already, but like, what are we on as far as how many good runs has he had this year that we've had to get called back? I think it's got to be around like it's probably not around 23, but god damn, it's got to be a lot. Good job on the backside by Tucker Kraft and Zach Tom. By the way, Zach Tom's got his guy all in the end zone. Great job. Too bad. Motion again. They only move one guy, so it's an easy read. We're going man coverage. I say easy read for the center. First guy out knows exactly who he's got to take care of. Once you take care of that guy, these screens. Here's the thing: on a screen, from an offensive lineman standpoint, if you know who you're going to, and you have a pretty good idea that you can get there, the rest of the game is kind of easy because, like, if I'm running downhill, I'm 295 pounds. These guys are bigger than I am. But if I'm running downhill at a DB or a linebacker, and they're trying to get to the running back, and all I have to do is basically run at them somehow, some way, and just make them. If they move, like I've won because for me, Amon or Najee or Tony or any of those guys is going to be able to make them miss. So this is, and these guys are even more shiftier because they're receivers. Or maybe this might be Emmanuel Wilson. I'm not sure. But the point is, the hard part is getting that first guy. If you get that first guy, the rest of it's cream cheese, man. It's hard not to, so last week we talked, I kind of talked about it in a couple different shows, and I always try to preface it by like, we don't know the story, but if this was the case, and you're hard on a guy for missing games and whatnot, but and who knows really again what the story was, and the truth is going to come out in the locker room. It's not going to come out necessarily in the media, despite what ESPN wants to tell you. But you just have to say, man, the guy sure as hell showed up and had a great game. A couple great catches here for touchdowns. Couple great catches for touchdowns. So this guy did not like his face touch, man, and so Rashid, unfortunately, just got tossed out the club by this guy. Like there's a couple plays where he was not happy. Man, he wanted to let you know for the rest of the game. Sometimes you get in your ass kicked. I remember we were playing Houston. They started this like 19-year-old kid against me. I was playing Carolina, and I was so pissed. Like I was so insulted that he was a rookie, first round pick and everything. Can't remember his name, but he was like 19 or 20 years. I was so insulted. I think we'd end up losing the game, but I think I yelled at their bench pretty much the entire game when I was on the field. And the dog cussing, just because you get so mad. So Anton Jones, he looked like that to me. Okay. Yeah, this is that window throw, man. It's one of the we talked about last week. Like these guys are usually wide ass open. This is a big time throw by him. I'm going to bring this up later, so I'll just bring it up now. You see between the right guard and the right tackle, we need to be as sturdy in there as possible. Again, what were they saying? I say this like look at this time, 4-man rush. Look at this time. I mean, this kid, how fast is Christian Watson? Jesus Christ. All right. I see that. So at the end of the game, Jenkins has to move. Myers is out, and they do. Okay, great. I disagree. I talked about this last week. I just don't. At some point, you got to go. And Myers didn't play great last week, so maybe that's why you have to do this. And he is a first round pick, but the physicality was severely lacking from the rookie. There's just so many plays here, and a lot of this is just footwork and getting bad. But if you got to knock the rust off, like, this isn't the time. Like, I'm a big fan of learning at practice, not learning in the middle of the game with 80,000 people in the stands. And just fundamentally, like, people are going to knock Jacobs on or Myers. That's not Myers' fault. Come on, Mike. Have we gotten back to this play? Here we go. So you got two to the side. This is one of the few And this is the hard part about Jordan Love. Like he is certainly athletic. So they end up running a game here, and we have to do a better job of kind of passing it off. Um, but he's just got enough time to do just about anything he wants. What a play! If you're the DB there, and we saw this last week, and I don't know if it's the way he throws the ball because it's up so high some of these plays, but the DBs, it looks like they're looking at the wrong angle. They don't find these footballs, and maybe it's a secret weapon we just don't. I can't quite comprehend. So here, 77 again. We got to be physical. This is a physical game. This is a violent sport. And if you're not, if you're learning on the go, in other words, if like it doesn't look like he knows what he's doing, is what I'm trying to say there. And I know that you're taking your read and you're coming back, but we need to do some violence, right? And I think, well, I think Sean Ryan is not the athlete, but this guy is certainly. Just from we need to that position, you can get away with just being violent at some stage. So this Danton Jones over Jenkins, man, I think it's payback time. Like the kid kept playing, man. This guy was the real deal in this game. And that's what happens sometimes. You just get into these you get in your own head and you start creating like there's a little bit of a fight with you. Now there's another play by Morgan, and like this isn't only his fault. Um, but you're pulling here. Okay, you either got to take out that color that you see from the tight end, or you got to pull tight. Okay, this is unacceptable. And again, my only point is not that he is not ever going to get better or any of that. My only point is now is not the time. Now this is how you run block. Zach Tom, and I don't know why this isn't highlighted. I spent all this time doing this clip art stuff, and then it doesn't record. But look at Zach Tom here. This is how you do the damn job. Stay on your track, downhill. Okay, his guy makes the play after he drove him for 5 or 6 yards. That's big time ball. That's just big time ball. Let's get some listener questions before we get out of here. Really, just such a fantastic effort by the entire team, the coaching staff. I am continually impressed after the Aaron Rodgers years, and a lot of some of the issues with toughness and over the course, and I don't know that all of that's necessarily gone or this or that or the other thing, but as a freaking offensive mastermind, Matt LaFleur, and he hired this time. It looks like he hired the right D coordinator, and Goody is absolutely a fantastic identifier of talent. All right, questions. Emmanuel freaking Wilson in the screen game, 73 total yards and 8 touches. Do you think his role diminishes when Lloyd comes back? I think it's hard to say that it won't, because I think Lloyd's the kind of talent you're going to try to play. But let me just put it this way: he's certainly, whatever he's getting now, he's earned, and Lloyd's going to have to play really well to dispel any of those reps. But I'm sure Lloyd's going to get a chance because he's supremely talented. And first touch he had in the Packers uniform, I think he went for 12 yards off the left side, right? How do practice schedules / activities change throughout the season as players get into game shape and move into colder months? How is it different now than you were playing? Completely different situation as far as the amount of practicing, the intensity of practices and all of that. Things were different. This is much more focused, and I'm not against this at all. Actually, being as fresh as possible when you get to game day, being as fast as possible when you get to game day, especially at certain positions, you can kind of intuitively go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So why are we wearing these guys out? Why are we doing cardio or whatever, running gassers at the end of practice for no reason? So kind of preserving, if you're trying to start every Sunday kickoff at 100. Trying to get back to 100 every week is really the goal, I think, that now more than ever was. And so we used to bang a lot more padded practices, just a lot more violence, I think, in practice than there is now. As you go on with the season, even we would take the pads off. So we would go full pads. And then by November, we would be 9-on-7, take everything off. And we go into pillow pads, which is just, your helmets and, hand fighting. So a lot of it does change, and you pare everything down as a coaching staff because you don't want guys to get hurt. I think they're just starting there now. And then obviously with, I think there's 13 padded practices you're allowed to have, and that's full pads. So not a lot of people go full pads anyways. Like full pads means you have to have pants on. Like if I have my shoulder pads, my helmet and shorts on, that's not a full padded practice. So that's a little bit of a little shady kind of misnomer where the public might think one thing, but the reality is something different. As a former player, what are some differences do you see with the 2014 compared to the last 3 years? I think I just said it. I think that Matt's really coming into his own. The head coach is really coming into his own as a play caller. Has complete control of what he's trying to do on offense with his different personnel groups. I think he's running the stuff that he wants to run finally. The new team on defense plays harder, are better tacklers. So if I can say anything about that defense, they play faster and they're better tacklers. Now they might have some other deficiencies, but they play faster, they're better tacklers, and they're definitely better on the back end with 29 coming in. I mean, night and day difference for sure. Do you see Morgan as a long-term answer at guard? I suppose he's going to have to be, because I don't think he can play. Well, he's not going to beat out Zach Tom. So maybe over the course of time, if Zach, who could very easily command a huge contract. Now, I would recommend that he doesn't go anywhere if I was him. If he's listening, like the grass is not always greener. That's why I do the show for the Packers. But I would say that he could go out and play. Maybe he's more of a right tackle body. You just don't know from a bend standpoint or a power generation standpoint if he can. Look, and he's always going to be able to play guard. I think you're asking me, is he going to be the next Marco Rivera? And I just don't know that that's the case, or TJ, or any of the guys that have come, that are really, really good. With the Myers injury, do you think Jenkins is the best center replacement, or do you think it's Tom? No, I think you never move your right tackle to go play center. No, it's definitely, well, Jenkins, one, because he has the experience, and that's a very important position in this offense as far as communicating the calls. And I'm not sure what they do from remiking and everything. If it's the quarterback that's the center, I have to guess it's the center. And so I think that's important. And I just feel like they can get by. They have two starters at right guard. They have two guys that are rotating at right guard. So those would be your two guards. And if one of those guys can't play center, then the inevitability, and I think the only thing that's going to kind of suck, if you're Sean Ryan, you're probably thinking you're going like, oh, great. Like I was starting, and then I was getting a ton of snaps, and then Morgan came back, and then all of a sudden so-and-so gets hurt. They move Jenkins. I'm back at left guard. I know I'm not going to start left guard when Jenkins gets, when Myers gets healthy, they're going to put Jenkins back there. So he's probably the one, the short straw here. He's probably drawing short straw. Now, the other thing that could happen is they could go on a tear. And I don't know what the long-term prognosis is for Myers, but we already know that Jenkins is probably a better center than Myers is, because he's a better football player. And so if Ryan plays well at left guard and Morgan plays well at right guard, and maybe they don't rock the boat, but I doubt it, but who knows? ESPN fanalist says, how did Jordan Morgan do? How did the O-line do after Myers went down and Big U went to center? Well, I just talked about Jordan Morgan. There's a lot of learning that needs to happen. He's a young player. I think he's got obviously has upside. That's why they drafted him. But he's another one of those Lucas Van Ness guys where as a player, I go, okay, there's some holes that need to be filled in this game if we want to get to the next level. And how long is it going to take to get there? And do you ever get there as far as what the ceiling is for that particular player? I certainly think there's a high ceiling there. It's just going to take some time. What do you think of Packers continue to rotate Morgan and Ryan at right guard? I don't like it at all. I talked about it on the show. I just don't like it. Cooper, Bullard, Williams all need to be on the field at all times. Yeah, I don't disagree. The Cooper thing, I just think, if you bring in big guys, you want McDuffie and you want probably Wilson's a really physical player. So I think you want those guys on the field. But anytime you're in any kind of nickel look, it almost seems now that you're cutting off your nose to spite your face if Cooper's not on the field. How do Packers get more targets for Watson? I mean, they can. He thinks he should get the ball more. That's interesting. Like, Watson, I think, was a leading receiver from a yard standpoint, obviously with the big one. But he is, he's that deep threat. I can't imagine. I'm not at practice every day. I just can't imagine he's as good a route runner as some of these guys. Just from a stride standpoint, like he might be able to separate better, but just from a stride standpoint, with a lot of the shorter routes that they do, is he the guy that you want to run those routes, or do you want to have him clear out, try to take a shot downfield, and then let your Jaden Reeds, your Dobbs, all those other guys to maybe run those routes that require a little more small space quickness? Do you have a welcome to the NFL moment? Yeah. If not, did I ever give someone? I think both of these true. I'll just show you. I have so many, unfortunately. So my first one was my first day at Green Bay. I've held out from training camp. I was a supplemental pick, held up from training camp. My agent wanted to get a 3-year deal instead of a 4-year deal, so they ended up getting it. But Mike Holmgren hated my agent, by proxy hated me for that. So when I came out on the field, he just dog cussed the living hell out of me. And at my first day, everyone else has been in training camp for 3 weeks and the whole thing. So hey, Coach Hanna, and he comes up, he calls me over and says, hey, did you get what you wanted? And before I could say, yeah, thanks, he just starts dog cussing the hell out of me. F you, F your agent. He says, you're not playing this year. So then Tom Lovat comes over and he's like, hey, you heard? So listen, I gotta deal with the guys that are going to be here, that are going to play. So just try to pick up what you can. Look at some of the older guys. So basically, I get the first 10 minutes, man. The head coach says you're not playing. The line coach says you're not getting coached. I'm like, it's fantastic. So that was, I was, I didn't even, to be here, I was so happy to be there. I probably didn't even care that much. But then we did one-on-ones that day, and nobody else had to go. They just put me at right guard. And again, I'd never taken real pass sets. I was an option guy at Navy. And I had to go through the entirety of the defensive line, ends and tackles. Gilbert, Santana, Vonnie, Reggie, Von Booker, Billy Lyon, badass Billy Lyon. I had to go through everybody twice. Or I should say they got to turnstile me twice. So I lost 14 reps in a row. Got thrown over the bat. I was like, man, this is tough sport. But at the end of that day, we had special teams. And they told me to run down on punt. And the one thing you can do if you're a Navy is you practice harder than most people, because we cut our D lineman, we tackle our quarterback, and we fight. I can do those things pretty well. So they were like, hey, run down and knock the hell out of so-and-so. I'm not going to I won't say his name. But I went down and, it's for everybody else, it's week 3 or week 4 in training camp. And for me, it's day 1. So they're like, hey, go block. And I knocked the hell out of this guy, knocked him on his ass. So he comes up trying to fight. And that was a mistake. So I drop him again, and I kind of came out of that day thinking I might not know what I'm doing, but physically I'm going to be okay. I can hang. I can't do technically. I'm going to get my ass kicked, but I when it just comes down to, I think I'll be all right. Has the style of lineman changed over years in the NFL? Would a lineman from your time be able to plug and play currently, or vice versa? Listen, I'd say they're looking for basketball players, and I was a basketball player too, but they're looking for basketball players that body type, maybe a little bit more. I think the biggest thing that's changed is the time that they spend on the actual craft has changed. And I've talked about this ad nauseum, but there's just the practice time is different. So there's 2 things that are going on. So there's guys that are, maybe in some clubs have this and some clubs don't, but there's guys that are really, really detail oriented and I'm talking about people that are helping the players that are real detail oriented. So those guys that are getting that help, I think the disparity between good players and really good players is pretty severe right now. Because I think technique and footwork are I think you have better athletes with worse footwork, if that makes sense. And let's look, Marco's a really good example. Marco was like a 5th or 6th round draft pick with like, he was a good, better athlete than he got drafted. Like he's better than his draft status, but people aren't going like, oh man, he's the biggest, best athlete you've ever seen. But his attention to detail, like I don't know if you go on any random team, he's a special player, so maybe this isn't fair to these guys I'm talking about. But I think if you go on a random team, like I don't know if you see the level of detail and preparation that you get from a Marco Rivera, and I think that's what made him so good back then. And that's why I think I'm sure that he would dominate now as well, because his level of preparation and attention to detail is just the standard was so high. And I feel about that way about a number of guys I played with over the years. And listen, you work with enough of these guys over the last, for me over the last 10, 12 years, on different kind of in teams as individuals, and you see the difference in preparation and what that does to some of these guys as far as their confidence on the field and how they and how they end up, kind of what their output is. I think now the severity in like people are making so much money that you have these two kind of people. Like if you get one contract now, you're set for life compared to everybody else. But if you really want to be good, you could do 3 contracts, and like 3 generations from now, they're set for life. And so it's just like, what is your, not that money is the driver, but like just putting it in those terms, like what's your level of ambition? Last one here. Question from tonight's Jets-Bills game. A lot of penalties called, but I think it might be too easy to blame the refs. Is there not enough practice time for the players to develop some fundamentals? Seems like winning the flags. Okay, that was a really poorly ref game. In a series of very poorly ref games. It is the hardest sport to referee, though. There's 22 players, huge field, tons of rules that most of us don't even like. There's probably 10, 20% of the rules I don't even know. So you have to understand like the amount of information they're processing is ridiculous. Even there's a lot of them on the field now. The practice time thing is a real deal, and I think that's up to the players to get. We always talk about what are you going to do before and after practice during your off time. Like, what are those decisions that you're making to get better? And I'm sure, having said that, if there's a 50-50 play where you're like, I could have called it, could have not called it, but your hand's outside, or a lot of plays of offensive line for holding, for example, if the quarterback escapes the pocket, and you've got the guy gloved up, but he's trying to reach away, and they call that all of a sudden, or the roughing the passer calls last night that were just atrocious. Some of that I think the refs have to clean up. Some of that I think the refs just have to understand. Like you have to. There's always there's letter of the law, and then there's got to be some context. I think in football, and I think sometimes what they do just to make it more interesting is they waive the context and they just focus on what the letter of the law is, and I think that's an easy route for them to take, but I think it takes away from the game. So that's what I think. All right, guys. Hey, listen, thank you as always for watching. If you're enjoying, please subscribe, rate, review on our YouTube channel, Process to Perform. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast, the audio version. I'm Mike Wahle, Mike Wahle68 on Twitter, Process to Perform on Instagram. See you next time.